All right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into Barack Obama's A Promised Land,
Yeah,
and we've got a lot of ground to cover
a lot.
from his early days all
Yeah.
the way through, those pivotal first years in the White House.
Yeah, those first few years were really something.
We're not just going to like recap the whole book, are we?
Wow, no, definitely not.
Really looking for those,
I think we want to get at like the
nuggets of insight,
the good stuff.
about leadership ambition,
The stuff that makes you think.
choices, all that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Stuff that makes us kind of rethink how we see things.
Exactly. And what makes the book so interesting is it's not just your typical political memoir.
Right.
Obama really gets personal in this book. He
Yeah.
talks about like his internal struggles, his doubts, even, the compromises he had to make along the way and how all that shaped his decisions.
Yeah.
It's that personal stuff that makes the political stuff so much more,
Yeah.
well, impactful, I think.
Impactful, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, take his early view of politics.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy who becomes president
Right.
starts out pretty cynical about the whole thing.
Yeah, he was disillusioned. He saw conventional politics as this kind of
Like
like a performance almost.
yeah.
A rigged game even is how he called it,
Yeah.
where politicians are more worried about their image and,
Special interest.
special interests than actually like serving the public.
Yeah.
And that cynicism is fascinating,
Right.
especially considering, where he ends up.
It makes you wonder, like,
Right.
does power corrupt? Or did he have to learn how to play the rigged game
Right.
in order to do any good?
I get anything done.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Maybe that's like a thread we can pull on as we go.
I think that's a really interesting thread to follow.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't the power plays that drew him in.
Right.
It was social movements.
Interesting.
Gandhi,
Okay.
Lech Walesa, the African National Congress,
Yeah.
especially the civil rights movement here in the U.S.,
Okay.
he saw regular people.
Everyday people.
Yeah, everyday people making extraordinary changes
Yeah.
by uplifting each other, not dominating.
It's a real contrast, isn't it?
It is.
That idea of power built not by tearing others down,
Right.
but by like empowering them.
Yeah,
Does that resonate with you at all?
it definitely does. Yeah, it really makes you think about those narratives we hear all the time.
Yeah.
About how you have to be ruthless.
Cutthroat.
Yeah. Cutthroat, ambitious to succeed.
Right.
Makes you question that.
Makes you wonder.
Yeah.
And speaking of contrasting approaches,
Yeah.
can't talk about Obama without talking about Michelle.
Right.
The book really shows her initial skepticism of his,
Oh, yeah.
let's just say unconventional style.
Well, it's more than just skepticism.
Okay.
Michelle was a successful lawyer,
Very grounded.
grounded, pragmatic, and she'd seen how those traditional paths, even when they led to success,
Even when they work.
yeah, often left people feeling kind of empty.
Right.
And then along comes Barack
Right. With his community organizing background.
with his community organizing.
And, not exactly polished.
Not the most polished approach, no.
Not the most polished guy.
And, she wasn't just,
Being difficult.
being difficult. She was discerning.
Yeah.
She had high standards.
That's a good way to put it.
And we can't forget, she'd seen her own father work so hard,
Oh, yeah. Play by the rules.
play by all the rules,
And still,
and still face limitations.
yeah, face those barriers.
So when Obama says,
I want to run for Congress.
yeah,
It's no wonder she's like,
hold on, really?
are you serious?
Are you sure about this?
Yeah.
It was a big leap, wasn't it?
Huge leap.
And their dynamic throughout the book is really fascinating.
It is.
I think it brings up those questions that I think we all grapple with.
Yeah.
How do our relationships shape our ambitions?
Right.
What compromises do we make?
The compromise for the people we love.
Yeah.
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 Big questions. And speaking of compromises and tough lessons,
Yeah.
Obama's early political battles are full of them.
They are.
Like that time he ran for the Illinois State Senate.
Oh, yeah, that was a tough one.
I mean,
A real wake-up call.
a real wake-up call.
He thought he had the incumbent Alice Palmer, on his side,
Yeah.
and then she backtracked,
Oh, wow.
decided to run against him.
How-
Imagine that betrayal.
That's got to sting.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, that's a crash course in the reality of politics,
It is.
not just the ideals, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then there's that story about him testing the waters for a congressional run against Bobby Rush.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, his team, rigged an internal poll
They rigged the poll.
just to see if he even stood a chance.
Bold move.
But he lost that race pretty bad.
He did.
But even in the loss,
Yeah.
you see that willingness to challenge the establishment,
He wasn't afraid to go for it.
even when the odds are stacked against him.
Even when the odds were totally against him.
Yeah.
He wasn't afraid to take a hit.
Not afraid to take those hits.
Or two.
And those hits
Yeah.
taught him some valuable lessons
Right.
about managing expectations,
Yeah.
about political maneuvering,
All of it.
and really importantly, how to navigate those situations where
right. Yeah.
your ideals
Yeah.
clash with practical reality.
Those tough situations where you have to make a choice.
Something we can all relate to.
Right. Oh, yeah, for sure. I think we've all been there.
How do you hold on to your principles
Right.
while still making strategic decisions,
Yeah.
especially when the stakes are high?
Especially when the stakes are high.
And sometimes those stakes get amplified by
Right.
the media and public perception.
Oh, absolutely. The media can.
Remember how Obama described the impact of his 2004 Democratic National Convention speech?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he went from relative unknown
To a national spotlight.
national spotlight
Yeah.
practically overnight.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
He called it unfiltered exposure to millions.
Yeah.
Exhilarating, but also
Oh, yeah, definitely overwhelming.
kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it really foreshadowed the challenges he would face later on
Right.
trying to manage those media narratives,
Yeah.
especially during the financial crisis.
Especially during the financial crisis.
It's a reminder of how quickly things can change
Yeah.
and how we need to be able to adapt
Right.
when those changes kind of thrust us onto a bigger stage.
Absolutely.
But the question is,
Yeah.
how do you stay authentic
Right.
when you're also trying to shape public perception,
It's tough.
especially in this age of instant
Everything.
everything?
Yeah. Instant communication
Yeah.
and the 24-hour news cycle.
The 24-hour news cycle.
It's a real challenge.
It's like the tightrope walk of modern leadership.
Isn't it?
Authenticity versus
Versus control.
the need to control the narrative.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, let's talk about that financial crisis that Obama walked into.
Oh, yeah.
Wall Street meltdown foreclosures, soaring people, losing their life savings,
It was a mess.
record unemployment.
A perfect storm.
It was a mess.
It really was.
And the human cost.
Oh, the human cost was immense. People losing their homes, their jobs, their faith in the American dream.
Their livelihoods.
It was devastating.
And they felt forgotten by those in power.
Yeah.
And they looked to their new president for answers.
They.
Did you imagine that pressure?
I can't even imagine.
It must have been immense.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he wasn't just dealing with numbers on a spreadsheet.
Right.
These were real people's lives.
Real people.
Real stories.
Real consequence.
Real consequences.
Yeah.
And the political battles over the bank,
Yeah.
bailouts, the stimulus package, all that.
Added another layer of complexity.
So much complexity.
He was trying to save the system,
Right.
but without alienating the public.
Who were understandably furious
Understandably furious.
at the idea of bailing out these institutions that caused the mess.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't be?
How do you thread that needle?
It's almost impossible.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, he was getting hammered from both sides.
He was.
The left accusing him of being too cozy with Wall Street.
Right.
The right calling him a socialist for government intervention.
It was a no-win situation.
A no-win situation.
Yeah. It was, and on top of all that, he's dealing with 2 wars that he inherited.
Oh, yeah.
Iraq and Afghanistan.
Those are already in progress
Already happening when he takes office.
when he walked in the door.
Yeah. And he's trying to wind those down responsibly.
Right.
While also dealing with the rise of Al-Qaeda.
Yeah, and all the
Other terrorist threats.
all the other terrorist threats that are out there.
Yeah, it's like he's trying to put out multiple fires at once.
It's a lot.
It is.
And then you throw in the Deepwater Horizon oil spill
Oh, yeah. Can't forget about it.
just a few months into his presidency.
A few months in.
An environmental catastrophe on top of everything else.
Talk about a trial by fire.
It's almost hard to fathom dealing with all of that at once.
It is.
Economic meltdown, wars, terrorism, environmental disaster.
I mean, it's a testament to his ability to compartmentalize.
Right.
To prioritize.
gig.
To delegate. Yeah, he couldn't micromanage everything.
Right.
So he had to build a team he trusted.
And empower them.
And empower them to act.
Which brings us to his domestic agenda.
Okay.
Healthcare reform was a huge priority,
Huge.
leading to the Affordable Care Act,
Obamacare.
Obamacare,
Yeah.
expanding coverage to millions who didn't have it before.
Millions.
I mean, that's massive.
A monumental achievement.
Monumental.
But also incredibly controversial.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there was fierce opposition from Republicans.
Right.
And even some Democrats pushed back.
Interesting.
Yeah, he describes the whole legislative process as this grueling marathon of
Okay.
negotiations and compromises,
Right.
trying to balance the ideal of universal coverage with the political reality of what he could actually get passed.
So balancing those ideals
Yeah,
with the realities of what's possible.
exactly.
And even after it passed, it remained a target
Oh, yeah.
for partisan attacks.
Constant target.
The debate about health care in this country is so deeply entrenched.
It is.
It's hard to imagine any policy satisfying everyone.
It really is.
He also tried to tackle climate change,
Right.
proposing a cap-and-trade system,
Yeah, that was interesting.
essentially putting a limit on carbon emissions.
Yeah, you put a limit on those emissions.
But companies can buy and sell allowances
Right, creating an economic incentive to pollute less.
to pollute less.
Yeah, it's a market-based approach
Interesting.
that he thought could appeal to both sides.
Right.
You know, encourage businesses to invest in clean energy.
Right.
But it faced strong opposition
Of course.
from the fossil fuel interests,
Right.
and ultimately it failed in Congress.
It's tough.
It is.
It highlights how tough it is to make progress on these issues
Yeah.
that demand long-term thinking
Yeah.
and collective action.
Especially when you have those powerful economic interests involved.
Powerful economic interests involved.
Yeah, it's the cuff one.
Then there's foreign policy.
Right.
Obama came in wanting to reset America's relationships with the world.
He wanted to shift away from the Bush administration's
That unilateralism.
unilateralism, yeah, towards a more
Multilateral approach.
multilateral approach, exactly.
So engaging with countries like Russia, China, Iran,
Right.
trying to broker peace in the Middle East.
A very different tone.
A very different tone. But was it naive?
Well, I mean, he inherited this incredibly complex geopolitical landscape,
Right.
and he had to balance his desire for dialogue with, you know, protecting American interests and
Right.
standing up for our values.
It's tough
The
balance.
constant balancing act?
And of course, not everyone agreed with his approach.
Of course not.
Some criticized him for being too soft,
Too willing to compromise.
too willing to compromise.
Yeah. Others said he wasn't doing enough to assert American dominance.
Interesting. So he's getting it from both sides.
He was.
But he remained committed to his vision
He did.
of a more cooperative world.
Right.
Even when progress was slow and messy,
Even when it was tough.
he believed in the power of diplomacy,
Yeah.
of building relationships,
Well, finding common ground.
finding that common ground.
It's important.
So we've got economic crisis wars, terrorism, environmental disaster, healthcare reform, climate change, foreign policy.
It's exhausting just listening to it all.
It's a lot.
It is.
It's no wonder he describes feeling the weight of the presidency
Oh, right.
so
I
heavily.
mean, the constant pressure, the long hours
The feeling of being trapped
in that bubble.
in the bubble of the White House.
Yeah, of the White House.
It takes a toll.
It does.
Even on someone as seemingly unflappable as Obama.
Right, even him.
And he's honest about the strain it put on his family.
He is.
Michelle adjusting to a completely different life.
Yeah.
Their daughters growing up in the public eye.
Right.
With all the security and lack of privacy that comes with it,
It's tough.
it humanizes him.
It does.
Right.
It really does.
Even the most powerful person in the world
Right.
still faces those relatable challenges.
Yeah, balancing work and family, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy.
In these extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah, that's something we can all relate to.
It also underscores the importance of having a strong support system.
Absolutely.
Family, friends, a trusted team.
You need those people.
When you're facing that kind of pressure,
You need people you can lean on.
you need those people to lean on.
For sure.
Speaking of teams,
Yeah,
Obama talks a lot about the advisors who shaped his decisions.
he does.
Strong personalities like Larry Summers,
Right.
Tim Geithner, Rahm Emanuel,
Yeah.
Robert Gates, Hillary Clinton.
A lot of big names.
All brilliant minds, but with differing viewpoints and approaches.
A lot of strong personalities in that room.
He describes those debates and disagreements behind closed doors,
Oh, yeah.
wrestling with complex issues, trying to chart a course forward
Yeah, with so many competing priorities.
with all those competing priorities.
It's tough.
And he talked about his own evolution as a leader.
Yeah,
He came in with a lot of idealism,
he did.
a belief in dialogue and persuasion.
Right, that he could change the way Washington worked,
Right.
bridge those partisan divide.
Bring people together.
Yeah, that was the hope.
But he quickly learned
He did.
that
Washington's a tough place.
wasn't always a place for reasoned debate.
No, it's not.
He had to deal with entrenched interests,
Right.
partisan gridlock,
The media.
A media environment that often thrived on conflict.
Oh, yeah. Conflict sells.
That's like a steep learning curve.
It is.
How did he adapt?
Well, he learned to balance his idealism with pragmatism.
Okay.
He realized that sometimes compromise is the only way to get anything done,
Right.
even if it means falling short of your initial goals.
So it's not about being purely idealistic
No.
or purely pragmatic.
It's about finding the right balance.
Finding that balance.
For each situation.
Okay.
Knowing when to stand firm on your principles.
Right.
And when to be flexible.
Rebuilding relationships.
Right. Even with people you disagree with.
Even with your opponents.
Yeah, because sometimes those relationships are the key to getting things done.
It's a nuanced view of leadership, isn't it?
It is.
It's not about always getting your way,
No.
but about navigating these complex systems.
Right.
And making progress where you can.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's about knowing when to delegate.
Absolutely.
Obama talks about giving his team the authority to handle those day-to-day details.
Right.
So he can focus on the big picture.
Yeah. You have to delegate.
And it takes trust.
It does.
But it also allows you to step back.
To recharge.
To recharge.
To maintain some semblance of balance
In your life.
in your life.
Which is crucial.
It is.
Because at the end of the day, even the president is human.
They are.
Needing time for family, for reflection.
Yeah, for those things that keep you grounded.
Amidst the chaos.
Amidst all the chaos.
He also reflects on the historical weight of the presidency.
He does.
The legacy he'd leave behind.
Right.
Knowing that his decisions would impact not just the present,
But the future.
but future generations.
Future generations. Yeah.
That's a heavy burden to carry.
It is a heavy burden.
But it also speaks to the potential of leadership.
It does.
The power to make a positive difference in the world.
That potential to make a difference.
Even when the odds are stacked against you.
Absolutely.
And that's something I think we can all take inspiration from.
We can.
We may not be presidents.
Right.
But we can all strive to be leaders.
In our own way.
In our own lives. In our communities.
In our workplaces.
Our workplaces.
Yeah.
To make a contribution.
To leave things a little better than we found them.
To leave the world a little bit better than we found it.
That's a good goal.
I think so. All right, so we've journeyed with Obama from those early idealistic beginnings all the way through the crucible of his first term.
Yeah. It's quite a journey.
As we wrap up our deep dive into A Promised Land, what are some of the big takeaways that really stuck with you?
The thing that I keep coming back to is just how honest the book is.
Yeah.
I mean, Obama doesn't shy away from his doubts,
Right.
his frustrations with the political machine, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Those times when he felt like he fell short of his own goals. It's
Yeah.
refreshing, you know?
It is. It makes it so much more compelling than a typical polished memoir,
Oh, absolutely.
where everything's all neat and tidy.
Yeah,
He lays it all out there.
he does.
The challenges, the tough choices, even his own missteps.
Yeah.
It makes him seem so much more human,
More relatable.
more relatable.
Yeah.
And I think it reminds us that leadership isn't about some kind of mythical perfection.
Right.
It's about navigating these messy realities.
Yeah, making the best calls you can with the information you have.
Right. And learning from the inevitable mistakes along the way.
Absolutely nobody's perfect.
One of the things that keeps coming back to me is Obama's profound belief in the power of stories,
Oh, yeah, he talks a lot about that.
how they shape our understanding of the world,
Our values, our sense of identity even.
our sense of who we are.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff.
And he's a gifted storyteller himself.
He is.
I mean, he uses that skill to connect with people on a deeper level,
Right, to inspire, to make even complex issues more accessible.
to make them understand.
Yeah, he gets it. He understands that stories can be powerful tools
For change.
for shaping perceptions, for driving change. Absolutely.
And he challenges us to examine the stories we tell ourselves,
Right.
the stories we tell about our nation, about each other.
Yeah, what stories are we choosing?
Are we choosing stories of hope and possibility,
Right.
or stories of division and despair?
It's a good question to ask ourselves.
It's a question worth pondering,
It is.
because the stories we embrace,
Yeah, whether we realize it or not,
consciously or not.
shape our actions, our choices, and ultimately the future we create.
Another thread that runs through the book is this tension between idealism and pragmatism.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Obama entered office with a lot of idealism,
He did.
believing he could change the way Washington worked.
Right, bridge those partisan divides, bring people together.
It was a lofty goal,
It was.
and he achieved some remarkable things.
He did.
But he also ran headfirst into the brick wall of political reality.
That's Washington for you.
Right. Progress can be agonizingly slow.
It can be.
Compromise is often unavoidable.
Often necessary.
And sometimes,
Yeah.
even your best efforts are met with fierce resistance.
It's tough.
So does that mean we just abandon our ideals?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I think it means we need to be strategic.
Okay.
We need to be persistent.
Keep fighting the good fight.
Yeah, fight for what we believe in, even when the path is long and hard.
Right.
And it means being willing to listen
To the other side.
to those who hold different views to seek common ground.
Find that common ground.
Wherever possible, because the challenges we face are just too complex
Too big.
to be solved by one party or one ideology.
As we wrap up, I keep thinking about Obama's reflections on his legacy.
Yeah,
He's very clear-eyed about the fact that he didn't achieve everything he'd hoped.
he acknowledges that.
He does.
But he also expresses this deep sense of pride
Right.
in the progress that was made,
The lives that were touched.
the positive difference that was created.
And he charges us,
He does.
the reader,
Right.
to continue the work,
To keep going.
to build on the foundation that's been laid,
Yeah.
to strive for a more just and equitable world.
Because the fight for a better future never really ends.
It doesn't.
It's a relay race.
And each generation,
Has to carry the baton forward.
that sense of both accomplishment and
Mhm.
ongoing responsibility, I think, is a powerful message.
It is.
And it feels like the perfect note to end our deep dive into A Promised Land.
I think so too.
We've explored Obama's journey, his evolution, his struggles, and his enduring faith in the possibility of change.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. We've examined those insightful moments that invite us to think about leadership,
Ambition.
ambition, the stories we tell,
Right.
and how we each navigate the tension between idealism and the often harsh realities of the world.
Those tough choices we all have to make.
We hope this deep dive has prompted you, our listener, to consider your own journey,
Your value.
your values, and the role you play in shaping the world around you.
Because we all have a part to play
We do.
in creating the future we aspire to.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Barack Obama's A Promised Land.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.